Welcome to the Forsyth Magazines podcast. I'm Brooke Eagle, your host, bringing you the stories of the people shaping our community. From business owners to local leaders, we'll explore their journeys, passions, and lessons learned. Let's dive in. Hey guys, I am here today with Jane Burnette. She is a great friend of mine and she owns her own health coaching business, Health Coach Jane. She's been writing a column for Forsyth Woman forever, and we're having her back on the podcast. Hey Jane.
Hey, how are you?
How's
Good
it going?
To be back.
I know. She's just so cute. I'm glad we have her on video so y'all can see how adorable she is.
I didn't know I was on video.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, great.
That's why I moved you, so I had you better in there.
Okay.
So Jane and I were chatting before we started recording, and we have a hot button topic to talk about today.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the GLP-1s, those are under the names Ozempic, semaglutide, Mounjaro, Wegovy. Yes. And it is a little bit of a polarizing topic, I feel like, for people. And for me, in the beginning, when I heard of this stuff and I saw the stars and, they had the Ozempic face and all that, I'm like, this is just crazy. Like, people are just trying to take a shortcut, and the research that I've continued to look at with the more and more studies that are coming out, I'm really impressed by it. I think you've got to do it the right way, and there's a wrong way, but I do find a lot of benefit in our modern society.
Yeah,
for sure.
So let's talk about that for a minute, the right way, and then I also want to talk about the wrong way.
Yeah. So the right way is the thing that these GLPs do is that they reduce the food noise in your body. So so many of us have struggled with our weight all of our lives. And, I've seen women with these perfect diets that they're showing on paper, and, they might be missing the emotional eating day or things like that, or women and men. But it reduces the food noise, which is huge.
I've just recently heard that term, like in the last few months. I never really thought about it, but it's an interesting term because I struggle with that sometimes. It's like,
I think we all do.
All you can think about
I think we all do. And I think you and I both love working out, and I think there is a live to eat mindset with people, and then an eat to live. And I'm definitely in the eat to live, but I work out a lot.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking about my next meal when I'm eating my current meal.
Yeah, me too.
And so, I feel that it's really great to help make healthy changes when that food noise is turned down. So, while you're on these medications, the right way would be to really prioritize protein. So one of the negatives is that you can lose a lot of muscle mass in addition to fat. So I think we all want to lose fat. We all want to lose fat and not muscle. So we might see the scale change and the weight is lower, but we don't want it to be muscle mass. So by prioritizing protein, I tell people at least 40 grams twice a day to kind of book in your day is the ideal thing to stimulate muscle protein synthesis. We don't have to go down that rabbit hole if you don't want to, but I like to say that, and then fiber and things like that. And then also strength training is really important. Mm-hmm. So even if it's just 30 minutes twice a week, that's been shown to help retain that muscle mass so you're losing fat and not muscle.
Yeah. And I think you say 40 grams of protein twice a day. I think that seems like, oh, that's easy. But if you're not actively thinking about what you're eating, because I went through a phase where I was trying to kind of track my protein to see how much I was eating, and I was shocked at how little protein I actually was eating when I thought that I was doing pretty good.
Yeah. So, just to give you an example, 5 eggs is going to be 30 grams of protein.
Yeah.
2
eggs ain't cutting it, ladies.
No, it's not. And you might have to, cheat a little bit and do like a whey protein isolate or a vegan protein powder just to supplement your eggs or whatever. But it's definitely, you do have to think about it for sure.
Yeah. It's not just going to magically, you're not going going to magically eat 100 grams of protein a day without some effort.
Right. Especially if you don't have a large appetite while you're on these medications.
I guess that's a good point, because your appetite is less. So it's even more important to prioritize protein.
Exactly.
For the less that you are eating.
Yes, for sure. Yep.
So we talked about that. So what's the wrong way to go about GLP-1s?
Yeah. So I'll kind of tell you about an experience that I had with a client who was one of the first that were on the GLP-1s. I said, so how much movement are you doing a day? And she's like, I have no energy. She's like, I literally had 5 saltines yesterday. So, not, again, prioritizing the protein. And I think it's the dose. So I think your primary care physician will potentially put you on a standard dose that could be really high for you. So I'm a big fan of kind of microdosing and then increasing it as needed. I think that some of the clickbait things that you see, some of the negative things like gastric paralysis, things like that, nausea, it's when you're on too high of a dose. So I like for people to kind of have that Goldilocks where they're still can eat. Yeah. I don't want you not to eat, I want you to learn healthy habits while you're on these medications.
Yeah.
If it is for weight loss. Now, some people are doing it for type 2 diabetes, which is what it was originally created for 20 plus years ago. Oh. So it's been around for a while.
Yeah.
The GLP-1, they are known as GLP-1 agonists. So they mimic GLP-1 that we naturally produce in our body. So things like amphetamines, fen-phen, things like that were given basically speed to help you lose weight. It's different from that because it actually mimics a natural hormone that we produce in the body. So
what are some things you can do to naturally produce GLP-1?
Yeah. So protein is the most satiating of all the 3 macronutrients. So protein, carbs, and fats. That is going to help you naturally help your GLP-1, your satiety, and your cravings. So that's what GLP-1 does. So in the brain, it helps with satiety and cravings. In the gut, it helps slow gastric emptying so you're fuller longer.
Okay.
Protein also takes a lot to break down as well. So if you're, I tell people, is it a hunger or craving? If it's a hunger, then you can have a chicken breast. If it's a craving, then you don't want the chicken breast.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true.
The other thing is fiber. So, having at least 25 grams of fiber a day will help you naturally, help your GLP-1
What are some
naturally.
Good, easy to get sources of fiber?
Yeah, so I tell people above ground vegetables are going to have a fiber to carb ratio that is really good. So things like asparagus, broccoli, cauliflower, all the colorful above ground vegetables.
I'm all for everything except for asparagus. No asparagus for me.
Okay, yeah, but that will help. And then the low sugar fruits like berries, so raspberries in particular are really high in fiber.
Okay.
And then things like chia seeds are good source of fiber. But again, that's something you kind of have to track too. I'm a big fan, not forever just tracking your food to see where your protein and your fiber is.
Yeah. I think if you track, you have to track at some point to see what you're eating. But then I guess the end goal is kind of to be able to kind of learn and kind of naturally.
It's just educational.
Yeah.
I think if we can shift the mindset to I didn't meet my macros today, I'm going to beat myself up, to more of like, oh wow, this was a ton of protein, or this was a tiny amount of protein, and just using it that way just for education for the rest of your life. Yeah. And then when you go out to dinner, you're like, okay, this is this much protein. And and then I like to tell people, like, how do you feel? Like, how long did you go to your next meal without thinking about food?
Yeah.
Versus white knuckling your way through the day.
Oh, it's so true. That's like, for me, I eat a very high protein breakfast. That's like one of my favorite meals of the day.
Yes, me
and so
too.
I'm good for several hours until like a later lunch. But if I eat if I'm out of my routine and I eat just like, I don't know, a pastry or something for breakfast, which would be super rare, I'm famished in an hour.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Well, when I first became a health coach, I'm like, all right, I'm going to get these Lara bars, which, have 4 ingredients. I'm like, this is so healthy. And I'm like, why am I starving 30 minutes later?
So true.
There was no protein in it.
I call those things, when I eat something like that and there's really not a lot to it, I say that's just enough to take me off.
Yeah,
so true.
exactly.
Because you can look at me and tell I like to eat, right? I do not eat for sustenance. Most people do. I eat for sport. And
you're a live to eat person.
I am.
I get it. I am too.
My vacations are based around where we're going to eat. It's my favorite. Probably my favorite pastime is eating. Yeah, and it's because I like to try all these different things. It's not just because I have friends who say that they would not eat if they didn't have to. They don't care about it. They do because they have to live.
Can't relate.
I'm like, what? But I say that about sleep. So
also can't relate.
Yeah, so I hate sleep and would not do it if I didn't have to. But I don't understand when people say that because I know I get joy from the thought of eating because, I'm a cook. My son is a sous chef. I got a Blackstone grill last summer, and I have been griddling like crazy.
Yeah.
But
I think that's why some of the recommendations I'm recommending, it doesn't follow a specific diet. Like I tell people food timing, like go for the veggies and the protein first, and then whatever you have left, like if you want some of the sweet or, starchier carbs and things like that, then go for it. But I do think for people like us, really getting down with the protein and the fiber helps.
Yeah.
The above ground veggies.
Yeah, and I think a big part of enjoying to eat, and I'm like Tim, I also love to eat, but it's the community, like going out to eat with a group of friends and being around people and eating together is just one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah, and when you're in joy and you're like loving being around the people you're with, I mean, your digestion's better, you assimilate your nutrients better, like all of that's awesome. So it's it doesn't. I never hope to be the person that is restriction because that's no fun.
It's no way to live.
Yeah, it's no way to live.
It's not motivating either.
Yeah, no, it's
and
not.
it's probably not sustainable. You can probably white knuckle your way through it for a few weeks or even a few months, but eventually you're gonna
and that makes you backslide. It makes you go back and just make up for lost time.
Yeah, and I think that's another con is that you don't learn these healthy habits while you're on it, and then you get off of it and you just due to cost or whatever, and you just go back to your normal ways. So I think a big part of the GLP-1s, if you're doing it temporarily, is learning the healthy habits and maintaining the weight loss, which is, in my opinion, the thing that's not discussed in all the diet books that I've read. It's all about losing weight, and it's never about maintaining the weight loss.
Yeah.
So,
well, because that's like the classic thing that you always hear is like, it's a lifestyle change, which I know is like cliche to say, but I mean, it is. You can't stick to some crazy diet just indefinitely for the rest of your life.
You can't be in a calorie deficit forever.
No.
Your body will not allow you to do that. Things will start breaking down.
So who do you think would be, just like in general, kind of a good candidate to look into a GLP-1?
So I think that my group of people that I like to help a lot in my private practice are perimenopause to menopausal women. They're working out, they're doing all the things, and they have 20 to 30 pounds, of weight that they want to lose.
Yeah.
There is something about, people talk about the vanity pounds and how these folks shouldn't get on these GLP-1s. But in my opinion, to see when you're trying to do everything right and you don't see the scale move, it's really disheartening.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, and it's just kind of like the screw it, like I'll just go back to, you know, my normal ways. So, you know, I honestly think, I mean, if you're overweight, obese, like the category is 30 pounds or 30 BMI. I think even if you're a little bit lower than that, like I think it just depends. You know, it's been shown to help cardiovascular health. It's been shown to help. There's tons of studies on Alzheimer's, dementia, that it's helping that as well.
Oh, interesting.
So Alzheimer's is known as type 3 diabetes. So I think it's something with
Really?
the blood sugar that because it's reducing blood sugar, it's helpful. Obviously, type 2 diabetes, which is what it was created for, would be helpful. And even those people kind of in that pre-diabetic range that's anywhere from like 5.7 to 6.1. And your A1C is the 3-month blood sugar average.
Okay.
So, and that's a simple blood test your doctor can run. And I think it's someone that's willing to do the work in addition to just doing the
that doesn't go in with the mindset that that's going to be like a quote unquote
magic bullet.
easy fix.
Yeah. If you have that mindset, then don't take it. You're going to lose a lot of muscle mass. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never heard of Alzheimer's referred to as the type 3 diabetes. That's really interesting.
Yes.
That runs in my family.
Yes,
and,
mine too.
And I'm terrified of it. So any tips for what we can do to avoid getting Alzheimer's?
Yeah. So, I mean, a big thing is, so what happens with Alzheimer's, our brain is it's a glucose hog. So it's an energy hog. So it uses about 80% of the energy that we use. And so when you become insulin resistant, so your body's not taking in the glucose in the brain, then we start seeing signs of dementia. So a lot of people will recommend more of a lower carb, you know, moderate protein, higher fat diet to where you're producing ketones, and the ketones can get through the brain to use as fuel other than glucose.
Okay.
So that would be my opinion, my 2 cents on that. There's a lot of other things. There's a great book by Dale Bredesen, who wrote The End of Alzheimer's. He's got a new book coming out.
Okay.
And he's preventing and even reversing Alzheimer's.
Wow.
But it's not. It's all lifestyle. So he says there. I mean, and I agree. There's no pill that will ever cure Alzheimer's, in my opinion.
Yeah.
At least not yet.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, there's 32 holes in the roof is how he explains, so we have to plug all those up.
Yeah.
And it's all, and it's even things like you're saying, like being in a community, joy, that all of that is part of it as well. So women actually start to see more cognitive decline as estrogen declines, so it's more of the menopausal years. And then men will see it at retirement because they're not in their environment around people and things like that. So,
interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. So a little side note.
My papa had it, and my great grandmother had it, and it's just like terrifies me. It's awful to watch somebody go through it, so I'm like, any way I can bring awareness to it and help people, maybe make changes, is good.
And there is a gene that you can test for. Some people don't want to know. I wanted to know. And for me, I have one copy of it, so you can have 2 copies of it. But for me, knowing that, it gives me a higher perspective and reason for living a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, no, I think that's
because I think we can keep the lights off.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, my mom did the genetic testing because we have a lot of breast cancer in our family too, and since she did it and does not have the BRCA gene, I guess, I didn't have to get the actual genetic testing. That stuff's all over my head, but it's super interesting. And I'm with you. I kind of, you don't want to know, but I kind of do want to know.
Yeah. Well, and here's the awesome thing. Epigenetics, like our environment, our lifestyle trumps our genetics any day of the week.
Yeah.
So we can do things.
So we're in control a little bit.
We are.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my opinion. That's my story. I'm going to stick to that.
So on the GLP-1, is that how I say it right? First of all, my BMI, and I'm not afraid to tell anybody. It's 42.9. I'm large.
Yeah. BMI is such a wild scale, though.
So
it is.
I was prescribed Ozempic, and it's pricey, and I wasn't going to pay that. My brother, and I say brother, he's actually my adopted brother, so we don't have any blood ties, has still diabetes, and or as Wilford Brimley would say, diabetes. And so he had used it for a little bit and lost a good bit of weight. And I was prescribed for weight loss. And he says, here, I've got 3 months worth that I didn't use, and they were still good. They were still whatever. He said, just keep them in the refrigerator until you open it and use it. So I used it for 3 months, and I didn't lose any weight from it. But on the other side of that, I hate exercise. So I didn't do anything to help it. But the part that made me glad that I was off of it, I do take Zoloft, and it wasn't helping. I was getting very emotional. I was up in the middle of the night pacing back and forth with anxiety about money, about life, about a whole bunch of stuff. And I noticed after I stopped taking it, it was about a week later, I wasn't up wandering about with anxiety. I wasn't emotional. I wasn't having outbursts. I was back to even keel, if you will. And my Zoloft is very low dosage. I mean, it's minimal, but it was, I call it my brain candy because it does keep me just level and laid back and chill. But I was anything but. Now,
while
I was on it, but I didn't realize that may have been what was going on. And I asked my doctor, he says, probably, because he didn't test anything. He didn't know anything, but, I just noticed that I was not in some kind of emotional fog and was back to chill. And it was just a whole different ball game on the other side of it. So some people need it and can handle it. I didn't need it. I just wanted to try because, again, I don't like to exercise, so I need some help. And I like to eat. I mean, we're talking about vegetables and stuff. It's not my favorite thing. I like to eat anything that had a mother, right? I want meat. But once I was through that, and some people, like I said, need it, but I realized I did not and should not have taken it because didn't do any, as far as I know, any long-term effects to me, but it was not beneficial to me at all. Didn't lose any weight, and it just set me on edge.
Yeah, so it's interesting because weight loss can be delayed due to inflammation in the body. So I'm usually seeing, it takes about 5 weeks for that inflammation to go down and then weight loss to start happening. For you, you said for the 3 months you did it, you didn't have weight loss.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing that there's studies and they're showing that there is suicidal idealization. And it's like, okay, are the drugs causing this?
I won't say that I was suicidal, but I don't usually think that way because I don't believe in it,
Yeah.
But there were times, and I'm like, I can just go step in front of a bus, or I can drive into that bridge embankment, or I wouldn't like shoot myself or anything, but there were times that I was in kind of a dark place.
Yeah. Well, the perspective that I've read about that is really interesting, it's not the drug, but it's because that food noise is reduced and we've used food as a coping mechanism. And because the food isn't doing that for us like it did, then we're having these thoughts and we're having more depression. So
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So there was a reporter that wrote a book on it, and I can't remember the name. But he said he would, his go-to was this fast food restaurant when he was in a state or whatever. And he had the meal and he was like, this isn't cutting it for me, so.
Does not bring me happiness and joy.
Yeah, because it's just food, like it's not filling that emotional need. So I'm so glad you brought that up, because that definitely can be a side effect. And I think that it requires a little bit deeper work. Like, why are you doing these things?
Yeah, no, that makes total sense to me, because the food noise is going down, so you got to replace that with something.
Yeah, like the ice cream isn't cutting it. It's like, okay, now I have to look within. This isn't fun.
Oh no.
So something to think about for you, if you but yeah. So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm glad we chatted about the GLP-1s, because I think it just has a lot of misconceptions around it, and a lot of people are scared of the judgment around it, and things like that. So I think it's a good conversation.
Just stop eating so much.
Here's the thing: I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. They're coming up with a new one at this year that will mimic gastric bypass, the results of gastric bypass.
Wow.
So it's like, how can we work with these? And by doing some of the things we talked about in conjunction with taking the medication, and then doing those same things after, like prioritizing the protein, the fiber, and strength training.
Well, and like you said, it's not going anywhere. So trying to fight it. And
it's not. No,
you may as well see if you can get people to be on it in the best possible way, the healthiest way.
Yeah. And my hope is, it's just going to get less and less expensive for people that, really need it, that may not have the means to do it. So if we're at an ideal weight, all disease markers go down. So.
And that's the goal, Yeah. That's the reason to lose weight, is to live longer.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Jane, always a pleasure, and I always learn so much from chatting with you.
Oh, it's so fun. Thanks for having me.
So be sure, guys, if you read Forsyth Woman, which hopefully you do, Jane's column is in there every month. Health Coach Jane, always some great content, and you can find all of her articles on our website as well, forsythwoman.com. So be sure to check her out. And what is your Instagram handle? How can people find you?
Health Coach Jane.
At Health Coach Jane, and then I'm sure you have a website.
healthcoachjane.com. Actually, my Instagram is Coach Jane BB, I think. I'm sorry.
That's okay. We'll look it up. And put it in the show notes.
Y'all go to the article and you'll see all my information.
Awesome. Well, Jane, thanks so much for coming out.
It is Coach Jane BB.
Okay, yes.
Coach Jane BB. What does BB stand for?
Blair Burnette. Yeah, all the handles were taken.
All the names.
Plain Jane was taken. So
I love it.
All right.
Well, that's it for today, guys. That's a wrap. We'll see you next time. The views and opinions stated on this podcast are solely those of the contributors and not necessarily those of our distributors or hosting companies. This podcast is copyrighted and cannot be reproduced without expressed written consent of Forsyth Magazines Incorporated. Ooh, that's a mouthful.